Hello and welcome back to another video, and also the start of my community-led videos that I'm going to be calling Voices of Ace. In this video, I simply asked what's your favourite thing about being Ace or Arrow spec. Now, the reason I asked this is because I really wanted to start this series off with a bit of positivity, and you guys had a lot to say. In fact, I got dozens of responses between Twitter and YouTube. So unfortunately I'm not able to go through every single one of them individually. I will leave a link to the tweet under which there is a bunch of responses if you want to go and read them yourself at your own leisure. But what I've done in this video is I have roughly categorized these into separate topics. And I'm going to be covering on some of the points that you mentioned in your favourite things about being Ace or Arrow, and talk about them generally rather than focusing on specific things that you've said. Without further ado, what are your favourite things about being Ace or Arrow? Is it the welcoming community? Is it the freedom from amatonormative ideas? Or is it simply the deluge of sweet and savoury treats? The first thing that I wanted to talk about today was appearance. So a lot of you mentioned things to do about appearance, whether that be the way you present yourself or your style and fashion. And the reason this is because a lot of people tend to dress for romantic or sexual interest. It is quite common for people to want to look sexy, and I think that a lot of Ace and Arrow people can feel freed from that pressure if they don't necessarily want that attention. Some people were saying that they want to look good only for themselves rather than for others, and it made them feel happier to do so. This also spread to external things, so the ability to judge people on their personality rather than their looks. Of course, allo people can do this too, but I think there's maybe a unique perspective to be gained if you're not swayed at all by a sexual or romantic attraction. Tying quite similarly to appearance is the expression of gender. Now, as I discussed a couple of weeks ago, gender and asexuality are more linked than you would initially think, given that it's a sexual orientation and not a gender identity. It gives people the freedom to express their gender in ways that they may not have considered beforehand. A lot of people expressed being free from gender norms and styles because of their asexuality, aromanticism, or simply discovering about it by being a part of the queer community. Another thing that a lot of people were discussing was the community around the Ace and Arrow identities. Because the Ace and Arrow spectrums are so broad, the communities in general are very accepting, and I think this shows in the amount of comments that were talking about that sense of community and how important it was to them. A lot of people, before they discovered that they were asexual or aromantic, thought that people wouldn't accept them for the way they were, or thought that because they were different to the norm, to what society expected, that there was something wrong with them, that they were broken. And then finding out that they were Ace or Arrow and finding that community of people who are like them helps them feel a lot happier about their identity and help them feel accepted. Having that community then helps them understand who they are better by discussing it with other people with similar experiences. That knowledge and understanding that they get can then be spread to other people. One person in particular expressed that they enjoy educating other people about asexuality, and because they know about it, because of the presence of a community who has taught them about it, they can then share that community with other people and maybe help them understand themselves better. Talking about the community, one thing that is very important within both the Ace and Arrow communities are friendships and platonic relationships. Because a lot of us don't necessarily want a romantic and or sexual relationship, we have to then analyze what relationships we do want. And it comes down to the importance of friendship and the importance of platonic relationship. Some people were saying that they're able to be more present with their friends because of the lack of sexual or romantic interests. And in addition, that they don't feel the social pressures to be in a sexual or romantic relationship. It also makes it easier to then be more intimate with your friends. I think a lot of people, even allos, could benefit from being more intimate in their friendships. If that intimacy is then saved for one person and all the responsibility of that intimacy is placed on that one person, it can be quite a big burden. In addition to focusing more time on platonic relationships and friendships, ace people who aren't interested in dating or sex also found that they had more time to dedicate to their interests, to their hobbies. This can be things from drawing to reading to snuggling with a dog in one instance. Another benefit from avoiding romance or sex that was mentioned was avoiding all the negatives that come along with those experiences. These can be things like heartbreak and breakups and cheating. These are things that quite often pop up if you are dating or having sex, and some people were very glad to not have to worry about that. Another thing that was mentioned was that ace and arrow people can be more comfortable in either having a relationship or not. Just knowing that they can be happy single made them a lot more content with their life. Specifically relating back to sex, one thing that was mentioned was not having to worry about unwanted pregnancies, STDs, or medical issues that may come into play because of having sex, or may cause a problem while having sex. And finally, one other thing that I found quite amusing that was mentioned a couple of times was that adverts are ineffective on ace or arrow people. So this is referring to the fact that a lot of adverts use the kind of sex sells mentality. So these adverts may be overly sexual in an attempt to get people's attention, and if you don't feel sexual attraction, you are less affected by that sort of advertisement. Another thing that was talked about quite a bit that I found interesting was the avenues that were opened up by being ace and or arrow. As I mentioned earlier, ace or arrow people may be more content being single than their aloe counterparts. And in one case, someone said that they have been able to encourage their friends to be more happy while they're single, which I think is a really healthy thing. You shouldn't be relying on someone else for your happiness. Turning back to relationships, some people mentioned that being ace or arrow has opened up new possibilities in terms of relationship structures. This can be things like queer platonic relationships, polyamory, or relationship anarchy. These are all things which may come up in the ace and arrow community as alternatives to a typical amatonormative relationship structure. I think this ties in rather neatly with the split attraction model and how by using that you are open to other forms of attraction than sex or romance, and that allows you to have these more complex relationships and really work out what you and your partner or partners want out of a relationship, rather than having to stick to this fixed structure that may not fit you very well. Specifically relating to demisexuality, someone said that they were able to filter out people on dating apps or who they met if they were only interested in a sexual relationship. Obviously, as a demisexual person, you will want to have a strong emotional connection before feeling that sexual attraction. So it's quite a good way to be able to filter out those people who are just in it for sex. And finally, to round it all off, something that was mentioned an awful lot were the memes and the symbols of the ace community, starting with this lovely ace flag. Both the ace and the arrow flag were mentioned as being very aesthetically pleasing, and I agree. I love that there's one main colour in it, and then there's a bunch of different tones of black and white. I think that's just a nice, simple, clean, and aesthetically pleasing design. Jokes and memes are a common thing that people enjoyed about the ace community, and there are a plethora of ace symbols mentioned, such as garlic bread and dragons and axolotls, and of course cake. These are all things which are roughly associated with asexuality for one reason or another. And finally, to round out the list of things that you love about being ace and or arrow is obviously our reproductive abilities, which enable us to create clones of ourselves in order to take over the world. This is in chapter 5, section 3b, paragraph 72 of the Asexual Agenda. Read it, because you need to be prepared. But that about wraps it up for this video. Of course, you can keep on contributing to this conversation down in the comments below, so if there are other things that you love about being ace or arrow, then leave them in the comments too. These videos in the Voices of Ace series will come out roughly once every 4 weeks, so you've got a bit of time until the next one. and that gives you a bit of time to think of some responses. And the next one is going to be specifically about relationships, and because we love our platonic relationships here, we're not specifically talking about romantic or sexual ones in this case. So the prompt with this one will be, what kind of relationships do you want in your life? This can be friendships, platonic relationships, romantic relationships, sexual relationships. And then, has identifying as ace and or arrow helped you be more open to exploring new types of relationships and new relationship structures? I just want to start a discussion about these different forms of relationships and whether asexuality and aromanticism has shaped the way you think about those close to you. So yeah, pop those responses in the comments below, and hopefully I'll get a bunch that I can talk about next time. If you have anything that you'd like to be covered in this Voices of Ace series, then feel free to leave those in the comments down below as well. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I post videos every Saturday, so if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. That is all I had to say today. Have a wonderful day, and I shall see you next time.